intro at the end.
Yeah, we could. I have a feeling we're gonna redo a few parts.
Yeah, that's fine.
But
all right, well, we can just get into the meat of it then. So, Homegames. What is it? What does it do? Who is it for? Homegames.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Shotgun approach questions.
That's it. All right. Hold on. Let me think. Homegames. It's a project that we've been working on for a year. How long have we been working on it before I was just messing with it?
I think like 8 months for me. 8 months for me.
Okay, that sounds about right. Because it was like Christmas last year when I actually got everything kind of at its core working, and it was like, okay, I should show someone this because this is cool. Anyway, it's a game thing. I still don't know what to call it. It's a game thing that runs on Node and runs in a web browser, and you play video games in a web browser over a local network. Hence the name Homegames.
Yeah, would an accurate description be that it is a LAN-centered game platform?
I guess if you wanted to be all fancy about it, sure. That's
well, I mean,
sounds like it's
3 components to it, right? There's there's the host, which has all the games on it, and then there's the players who play it, right?
Yes. So there is a game server that kind of runs somewhere on a local network, and then every client on that local network can go to a service or use a service, I guess, called homegames.link that will map the internal IP address of the host that's running on your local network to whatever. Basically, you don't have to know the local IP address. You just go to this URL. It'll redirect you back to your local instance, and you can play games with people on your local network. That's really like the promise or the goal of it. And everything runs in a browser. It is kind of like the core of it now. One day there will be apps, maybe. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the last one on there would be just also it's a way to make games as well, since it does come with tools and stuff like that for that.
Oh yeah, the whole thing is an open source project. So just that's the whole goal, is that anybody who wants to make games can make games and then play them with their friends and test them out and maybe never release them because they're trash or whatever, but have fun building them and learning and all that kind of stuff. It's like a learning tool. A huge part of it to me is the learning tool part.
When you say learning tool, are you talking about yourself or just like other people who are going to contribute it, like open source contributors?
It's both. I think like if you want to build games and stuff, you don't need a CS degree, and you don't really need to know. You don't need to know a whole lot, I guess, to start building games. Especially like with just JavaScript, it's not super hard to get into, and a lot of people who aren't technical are learning JavaScript for their jobs, like marketing and all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. I just think that there's like a window there for people to kind of develop their own skills and be like, well, I've done a console.log before, so I can build Pong or whatever, and then kind of develop themselves from there. And then for me, it's a learning thing because I've always liked video games, but I have no idea how to make them. So if I'm making this engine stuff, then I get to just kind of learn how that stuff works.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. For my end of things, Homegames, Joseph kind of just told me about the idea, and I thought it was really neat. And we kind of ran into this problem when we went to like a hangout with our friends, and we wanted to like do something together, but we didn't have enough controllers for a console or anything like that, and so we were just like, Jackbox is kind of the like inspiration, I guess we could say, for it, where X number of people with a phone can just kind of like hop onto the game instance together, and then just like play a game together, just chill, play a game, have a good time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are also afraid of controllers. Like, my mom, for example, if I wanted her to ever play a game, she already has an iPhone and she's already used to a touch screen and all that kind of stuff. And she's comfortable going to a website on that iPhone. But if you hand her an Xbox controller or even something more simple, she'll probably just be like, oh, well, I don't know what the buttons over here do. And regardless of whether or not those buttons are going to be used in whatever game you play. She doesn't know what it does, so she doesn't want to use the controller. So just kind of like removing that barrier, I think, is another big thing. That's why I think it should always run in a browser or in an app, just something on a device everybody knows how to use.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is you could always play it on a computer or something like that as well. If you have like a ton of random devices laying around, people from cross devices can still play together, which I think is kind of fun.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny that I'm mentioning that too, because like you could run it on a computer. You could also run it on a TV if you somehow had like, you know, PC connected to a larger screen or whatever. And I added controller support just because I think it'd be fun to do that, because I like the idea of someone playing a game on a TV using some stuff that we built, but I don't really actually see a world where anybody's setting up an actual like a LAN party with controllers for a home games thing.
No, but I mean, like, if you were at somebody's party and there one dude there or one person there was just like, hey man, like, we could play this game. I have like 6 controllers, 3 of you can be on your phone. We can just figure this out. Like 9 people.
Yeah, but I guess that makes sense. It's just I don't know what those games would even look like. It'd be like, oh, you're on the controller, so you're doing some sort of different, like maybe you're playing against the people who are using a different device, like that whole kind of thing. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I mean, we
like
still have to figure a lot about like what the games are going to be for. Like, at least
we've never really made a game.
Sorry, go ahead.
We've never really made a game. We have no idea.
But we made a game in college, technically.
Oh yeah, that was. Oh my god. Oh, that wasn't a game, dude. But yeah, no, we did technically make that game before. It was a mud. It was super trash. It didn't work. I think if you moved backwards from the starting square, the game crashed. Shit like that. It was really awesome.
Makes sense. We probably shouldn't have let you move back, looking back. I mean, the other thing too is we also had no experience really in doing anything.
And we still don't.
Like that. Well, yeah, we do. You and I both work in JavaScript. Oh, that's the other thing. And this is something that is probably important to mention. Joseph and I are both paid to be developers.
See, so this is the part where I feel like we should actually be doing the introduction.
Oh,
so how about... I have no idea who you are or why I should give a shit about your podcast. Go.
Okay, so...
Not really, but go.
All right, so Joseph here is paid to be a developer. He is also the lead and chief engineer on Homegames. He is, I don't know, man. You've been working professionally now for like 5 years, 4 years?
I don't know. You're trying to give me like a serious introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I am the opposite of a serious person.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I am technically a developer. I work at a startup. I used to work at a larger company. I write, I'm a technically a professional, I guess, in that way. I don't know. I just like writing code, and I'm a software developer. And I also, I guess, am the main person of Homegames because it was like I did it in the first place or whatever. But I guess there's no titles on Homegames. It's just I'm the dude, and Yazeed is also here.
Yeah, we just don't want to have labels, man. We're free flowing.
Yeah.
We don't want to put a name on it.
And Yazeed is also a professional developer, and we've known each other for a very long time. And
it's true.
We met each other in middle school. We've been friends since high school, and we are now in our mid-20s. So that's it.
When you say that, I realize that we're in our mid-20s. And it's not a bad thing to be in your mid-20s, but still.
No, we're in our mid-20s.
Yeah, I know. I never refer to myself as like my mid-20s. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Technically, am I in my upper mid-20s next year? At what point are you in your late 20s? I guess is my question.
I think 28, 29 is late 20s. Okay. I think maybe 27 is also kind of on that little edge, because to me, like 24, 25, 26 is mid-20s.
Okay, so I have one more year.
And that's just numbers.
I have a year and a month is what you're saying, basically. Or a year and 2 months.
Yeah, tell them your birthday too, Easy.
It's not exact. Also, with a name like Yazeed, if you can spell it at all, I'm sure you could find me. It's not hard.
Yeah. Yeah, just never spell it.
Yeah.
And all of the text descriptions of the podcast, we'll put asterisks all over your name. We'll just call him Mr. Y.
That's actually a pretty sick name. No. To kind of circle back to what we were going at earlier, I did have one other question for you on Homegames. When we were talking about like the app versus the web page, which would you prefer, I guess? Because personally, I don't like downloading apps if I can get away with it, just because like I don't want to do all that like front loading, if that makes sense.
Sure. I think I like totally agree with you. I think in the first few times that someone is ever going to play Homegames, I imagine that will always be a web browser. Like when you hear about it, when you try it out, when you whatever, it'll be a web browser because you don't want to download a stupid app. And I'm not going to flood the browser page with a banner that says to download the app, put up a modal that says download the app, and blah 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 blah. Like that stuff is garbage. So the app for me will always just be getting more control over the UI and getting kind of more power, like maybe more potential out of the WebSocket libraries or whatever that is just available to me in the browser. I don't really know, but in my head, the best graphical thing that you're running on your phone will always be a native application. And if you want like the best version of Homegames, I would say it should probably be on an app on your phone instead of a browser in your phone. But I don't know enough about Android and iOS graphics libraries to like really say that for sure. I just think that that's true based on what like my naive whatever assumptions.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds right anyway. I mean, in theory.
That sounds right. Let's just do a bunch of work to
like
prove
just
that,
like
I guess.
Like a technical standpoint, right? Like your phone's never going to give over more than a certain percentage of like RAM and processing power to the browser. Whereas with an app, I feel like it probably is more willing to give up more. Or like your browser is going to take some of whatever your phone allocates for it. But that's also just like a wild assumption based on completely no information. Just like what makes sense to me. But anyway, yeah, man, I don't know. What else is there to ask about Homegames? I mean, right now it's still in like super early development, so I guess we could switch into like where we're at like right now, and then talk about like, where we want that to be or something like that.
Sure.
But
yeah, that sounds good. Where do you think we're at? I think that'd be a good question because I have a totally maybe different idea.
I mean, I still think we're in like the early stages of getting like the groundwork laid, I guess. Just getting it so that we can actually start to develop a game. Just like getting all the pieces in place, like making simple, like not like game is too much, but I don't know what else to call it. Like a very simple game, just so that we can figure out like what pieces we're missing, like what do we still need to build, what kind of tools do you still need. Like we need to display a name. Like, we need to generate a random name, which then you can change later. And then we need a way for you to change that. And then so basically we're just trying to figure out like what all we still need. Because we don't have like you and I are both like developers / project managers. Like we don't have somebody above us that's giving us like, and now in 2 sprints, however long a sprint would be, you need this because we need this for our clients or whatever. It's more like, hey, I want to do this thing. I can't do it because I'm missing this piece. So let me build that piece. If that makes sense. I don't know if I answered the question.
No, yeah, for sure. That's exactly where I think we're at too. I just think, I guess I'm also fuzzy on what all this is supposed to be doing. Because like you said, we are developers / project managers. And it's like, well, yeah, but we're kind of there's no real role. Like we're just the people who make home games at this point. And there's like visual stuff and like I would guess designy type stuff maybe for marketing or whatever, if that were ever a thing that would be Synovia's responsibility, because neither of us should be doing design. So we don't know anything. And like I got a logo or whatever, I got a proper logo and an app logo from Fiverr. Contracted someone on Fiverr to get us a logo. That was pretty cool. And yeah, I don't know. So just from all that perspective, like that's like other people should always do that, but we are in the driver's seat of the tech stuff, and like you said, we're just trying to figure out what we're trying to do, getting a simple game. And like we kind of talked about this on our episode 0 audio test slash does this make any sense at all thing that we recorded before. But like, yeah, there's weird technical stuff that we're just trying to figure out now. Like you mentioned, generating a random name. Generating a random name is not like really that interesting. Like it's just pulling text from a dictionary of words. It's just a for loop or whatever. And I guess it's just like stuff that you don't think about until you're in the middle of some other idea, and you're just like, oh well, I guess we have to do this, and you know, it's whatever. And we're still kind of coming up with, oh well, we're just thinking of this cool thing that we want to do, and we start to build it just because, you know, that's all we really do. And then like, oh well, we actually have to do this, and we have to do this, and wait, should we be doing that? Oh, I don't know. Maybe we should talk about what this whole thing should be doing. It's like, I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I guess for me, like the best indicator of that was when you and I talking about hiding like game nodes from other players, like players who can't see it, like it's not envisioned for them. It's just like the back and forth of like how we're gonna do that and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, and then yeah, we had this like really, really interesting conversation because the whole thing was, well, originally it was the game state is shared across every device, because I just imagine like a 4-player arcade game or something, and the kind of magic there is that you're all seeing the same thing, like Simpsons arcade game or whatever. It's all the same with different controllers. And I was like, okay, well maybe we'll build home games like that because it's a shared game state and it's just being broadcast the same state to everybody. And that's not really a technical limitation. That's a kind of design philosophy that'll make us think in a certain way that the game is always shared. And also kind of in a nice way would let us do spectating in kind of like a built-in way. Basically, the game is broadcast to everybody. You're either a player or not. So you can do spectating if you don't really want to play games, which would still be cool for home games, I think. But yeah, and then like you said, it was just like, oh, well, the original thing was a card game. Synovia was like, well, you guys should do something super, super simple for your proof of concept. So the card game is deal cards to players. Whoever has the highest sum or whatever in their points wins. And then so the problem came when, how do I show you, like you said, your name and say, oh, this person won. And how do I know that I am that person? I have to display the name in the corner, and it's in a traditional arcade game, we're all physically aligned left to right, so you know the name should be aligned on the screen left to right because this player is here, this player is here. It's not super easy to know that when everybody's just on an iPhone in the living room. So it's like, okay, we need to rethink this. And I had this like crazy, like stupid idea of, okay, well, we'll have multiple game servers, and then there's one master server creating and deleting other servers, and then giving them to different players, and then you have different whatever, so everybody's got their own. But before that, we had already talked about just marking some nodes as hidden. And so it's like, okay, well,
like a whitelist for players who can see it.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, right, we did talk about that, and I'm stupid, and then bringing it back to that. But the funny thing is, because we don't really have like any sort of formal structure on this, I built half of that stuff in one weekend. I was just like, oh, well, I'm bored. I'm going to go build this thing that creates and like allocates servers in a master game server or whatever. And then I texted you about it after I was already working on it. And you were like, what about the other idea where you just mark nodes? I was like, oh, oh, fuck.
You'd think two professional developers would have been like, oh, we need documentation. We're like, no documentation. We'll just remember everything we say to each other.
Well, at this point, I think documentation is kind of useless because everything is changing so quickly.
Yeah.
Like, and because, like you said, we don't even have a solid idea. And maybe this is me being stupid because I'm so used to the, like, you know, like I said, I work at a startup, so there's not a whole lot of structure in that startup, but there is structure, there's process. And I view this as a side thing, so I kind of just don't want any structure or process, even though that is definitely necessary for a successful software project. So I guess it's kind of like a weird line between how, like, needing documentation in the sense of we should document our general goals and like kind of our thoughts at the time, but I don't think maybe like writing a developer guide or whatever at this point is useful.
No, yeah,
because it'll change. Yeah,
but like documenting that, we probably wanted to go with the hiding nodes approach. Would have saved you a whole weekend. You probably could have done that whole thing in a weekend instead of scrapping what you had done. But I mean, the other side of that is like, luckily, this is sort of like a documentation for us.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, this serves as a documentation, and hopefully it's entertaining or interesting to somebody too. But really, I think this will be fun for us to just kind of track the project over time, and see what we were thinking and where we were at the time. It's kind of like a stand-up. I think we talked about this before, but this podcast is really just like a weekly whatever check-in of how the
like a stand-up / retro review. I guess we can kind of transition to like kind of the most recent things we did. So the most recent thing that I was a part of was getting that random number stuff, or not random number, sorry, random names, like in place. It's like kind of the groundwork for it, like we were talking about earlier. We're getting like the whole dictionary, storing it so that we have a whole dictionary of words, and then you can construct a random name from building like basically like a tuple of like words from the English dictionary.
It would also be nice to oh yeah, my update. So
I'm completely just like Yazeed, do this instead.
I'm integrating that stuff with kind of a like basically a dashboard, like a Homegames dashboard, and this is kind of interesting because it's essentially a non-game game state that the game server is rendering for every person who's connected. So when I connect, the original thing was, well, there's only one game instance happening at this time. So when I join, it's either already created or I create it, and then I join and I either play or spectate. It's kind of like this two-tiered decision thing of like create, join, or spectate, play. And so we didn't have this whole like game selector and all that kind of stuff for each person, but now it is, all these games are here available to you, and you can create and join either of them, any of them. And so it created this need for a dashboard basically. So this is now a whole separate basically game node under the root node. And that game node is not really a game. It's that one player's dashboard session. And then kind of, hooking that into another game node from there to an existing game session. Kind of a whole weirdo thing there. I still haven't really figured out what I'm doing. But that, and then integrating the generate name stuff that Yazeed did and putting it into kind of that core of, okay, well, there's now a player object kind of, and has a name and it has other things that persist, like its connection, its current state, and all that stuff. So anyway, what I was going to say is it'd also be nice if that dictionary, I know it doesn't, it's just a list of words, but if it had verb, adjective, noun, or whatever, we can always do, adverb, noun, or whatever for the name. So instead of just two random words.
Oh, so yeah, like I see what you mean. Oh, that'd be pretty
gingerly cool. Lover, or whatever, stuff like that. Instead of boat fuck or whatever we get now.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I would like to point out is that Joseph and I kind of agree on this, but we don't really want to leverage a lot of node packages if we can avoid it. So we'd rather just build it ourselves if we can. But we did leverage, I don't remember his name, and I wish I did, but we did leverage a GitHub, like on GitHub somebody did post like basically like a whole just text file, and then he also posted like a JSON of like the English dictionary, but there is no like it's not tagged at all basically. Like there's no separating information between words, it's just straight up just the list. So I don't know, we can do that. I mean, I can figure out a way to do that. I think you can look it up.
Yeah, but it's right? Like, yeah, sure. I mean, there's probably some way to do that. I'm not saying it's necessarily important or even that interesting to do, because there's no point in having a better random name if someone's going to change it and they can't even play a game or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. So
that is true.
I don't know.
It is maybe a later task.
Yeah, when we have or it could be one of those things where like someone someone just wants to learn something or do some sort of contribution because they like home games or whatever, and they want to help, and they're not us, that'd be great. That'd be a great example of like a task that someone could do.
Yeah. I would recommend not doing that by hand though, because there's a ton of English like weirdness.
Well, yeah, but I mean, dictionaries exist that have all that stuff. There's other data sets that exist that have all that stuff. There's probably services that exist where you can run a script to search each word in that main dictionary to go get the classification of it and bring it back into some other metadata thing. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter.
That's true. What are we going to do for stuff like buffalo, where it's a verb, a noun, and an adjective?
It's technically whatever. As long as it's technically something, we can just double use it.
Double use it? Okay.
We're looking for adverbs, though. So luckily, buffalo. I mean, not that we're actually... Again, this is a dumb conversation. We're not actually looking for adverbs. We're not actually trying to do this at all. It's just a dumb thought experiment.
If you're
how
out
we
there
would do that.
and you really want to help, do this first before anything else. That's what Joseph was saying.
But that kind of opens up the whole conversation about like what we want people to change. Because I don't think people should change the core of home games. I don't think people should change, unless there's like a bug fix or something. I don't think someone could be like, yeah, I rewrote the core renderer. I just thought it was better this way. It's like, I don't want anybody to even think they can do that. But at the same time, I want them to think they can make a game.
Well, what if somebody could? They're like, oh, the algorithm you're using to render is subpar.
That's totally fine. I think I would like some more outreach, I guess, like more communication before that, instead of someone just like rewriting everything in a night. Like someone that's doing something that's super core to the thing should maybe like create an issue or like fork it and then do it and show us and whatever. Like I just don't want the scenario where someone's like, yeah, I rewrote all the core of it overnight and like we didn't talk about it and you don't know how this works and no one, like, you know what I mean? There's a weird line somewhere between the people who moderate home games and the people who contribute to home games.
That's true. Yeah. I guess the other thing on that too is like home games is still very much so in like active development. So if you rewrote like the core thing right now, there's a good chance like we're just gonna run into some issues later down the line anyway that we're gonna need to rewrite the whole thing again anyway. So having it be kind of like a work in progress, right?
Yeah, especially right now is like the worst time. See, in my head, no one is listening to this and no one is contributing to home games until we've like officially released it in some way. And when we officially release it in some ways, when we're like, okay, the core of this thing is correct, we can do X, Y, and Z, and then we'll just iterate from here on out. But we need people to iterate because we kind of don't know where to go. Or whatever. Maybe not don't know where to go, but feel like we hit a goal of some sort, a milestone.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, then people can kind of join and whatever. And then this first 50, 100, 200 episodes or whatever will be the like, oh, before this thing was real, they were just kind of talking about it this whole time.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you are going to release these like regularly, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I still don't know how I'm going to release them. Like, we still have the episode 0 that we recorded like 2 months ago that I haven't put up yet.
Oh yeah, that's fine. No worries. In my head, I was like, if it could take us like a year, and then by then you'd be married, and it'd be having us make jokes about being married and stuff like that would be very confusing for people. Or like if they start following you like your Twitter account, you're like,
we won't be married until we won't be actually married until 2021. So that's a pretty good thing. How about that's our first home games goal?
By 2021.
We have this thing actually we have some sort of official thing for home games in the sense that we have an official website. We have an official application that we've built and all that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, we're ready for all this stuff to be kind of good.
Yeah,
and used by people
for
2021.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably get it done through 2020. Like, if we had more time to devote to it, is the thing.
Yeah, life is very busy these days, so I don't know how much time I'll actually have to spend 40 hours in a weekend writing home games code, but I don't know.
Okay, so I guess the next thing to go to would be where you want home games to go, like this next period. Like what would you target as things that you would really like to see done, like this next
Like
week,
in general, or for this? Okay, so sprint goals.
Like, let's say like 1 week is a sprint, then 2 weeks is like an epic. What is that, like an epic or whatever? Anyway, like 1, 2, and 4 sprints out. Like 1, 2, and 4 weeks out. Let's do that.
Okay. By the time that we record the next time, I want to have Synovia's game done. I want to have the card game done. I want to have the names displayed. I want to have the winner be displayed, and I want that whole thing to kind of work. I think the stretch goal for the sprint would also be getting the cards to display instead of just the numbers next to the card.
Didn't
or
Alex
whatever.
do that?
No, he did the common deck logic, but he didn't do the actual, like, we don't have any card images, is what I'm saying.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, because his whole thing is just like the class deck, and then he has all the classes and the whatevers and
Okay. I
all
thought
that
he
kind
had
of
done
stuff.
that, but okay.
Or maybe he did. I don't think he did, because I didn't see any links to assets or anything. So where you can actually.
You're probably right. I didn't look at it. I reviewed his PR, but I thought that he did do that. I might be wrong though. He could have been talking about doing that.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, it'd be nice, but I'll have to, like I said, it's a stretch goal or whatever to get them to display in there. We already have asset displaying and all that kind of stuff. We just don't have the association of this, card object has an image and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's basically what I want to do for this 1 week. And then you said 1, 2, 4.
Yeah.
2. I guess I don't know about 2, but for 4, I would like to have the dashboard complete.
Okay.
I think that'd be that's really like my thing, because to me that's like the next wave of major changes, because at that point we also have the ability to test what it's like with one game server running one game node or game tree that actually is the entirety of everything, hidden from some people, not hidden from others. Like there might be some changes to the squisher logic there if that's the case, and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see.
So I guess if we then talk about like how you want to, you just used the word and I forgot it. The thing we're building in 4 weeks. The landing page.
Dashboard.
Thank you. Sorry. You think I know that because that's literally what I was doing this past week at work too. But the dashboard, yeah. So what kind of information do we want on the dashboard?
That's a good question. So I think we should have a list of games, and that should be kind of a common thing. It should be I've created a game that goes into the games directory. I then create some sort of metadata association thing, and say, hey, Homegames, here's my game. And then Homegames will load in like your thumbnail and the name of the game and the creator's name, because I think that's a huge thing, is attributing authors and all that stuff. Obviously, it being on GitHub, you get that for every commit, but if someone makes something cool in Homegames, they should get credit for it. So anyway, that should be a big thing. Anyway, list of games that are all clickable, and like I said, you can create or join and then play or spectate when you actually do that. And then just your name. Then I said, randomly generated at the start, and you can change it, but there really doesn't need to be anything else, I think.
Okay, and then do you think changing it should be part of the 4-week goal?
It'd be nice. I would say maybe that's like the stretch goal for the 4 weeks, or maybe. I guess, we can't really do changing your names until you have a dashboard, because all the UI for that would be within the dashboard.
But like the storage and all that would be on the back end, so you could write like the function to change names and like store names and stuff already.
I actually have that in a old version of Homegames. It's not even on GitHub, and it's essentially that it does a broadcast event when someone changes their name, and all it is just a screen with everybody in the game's name. So it's like, oh, I changed it, and everybody sees the new updated list.
No, then we just have to bring that one up to date then, I guess, right?
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, whatever. That'll be nice. Zenobia was also saying in her head she wants a nice splash screen, like basically a fleshed out version of the initial drawing that she did with like the couch and the TV and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And basically make that like an interactive splash screen, which I think would be cool. But I guess it's a lot of like technical work to make that happen as opposed to just a list. So because when I say splash screen, that's not really what it is. It's like it really would be like the dashboard, like you select within the TV on there. Everything just kind of has that nice UI around it. So I don't know how that would work. Maybe it'd be something like the image is just there, and then there's a blank portion in the center, and everything is just rendered to that blank portion in the center, so it appears as if it's on the TV, but nothing's actually really happening besides the static image in the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll see. But she wants, fancy UI and zoom and all that kind of stuff, because when you see something in a web browser, you immediately think that you can just do things like you could in a web page, like with all the nice, CSS and JavaScript animations, transitions, and zoom and all that stuff. But like, yeah, doing all of this natively or doing all this just in a canvas and like, basically having node logic to do all that stuff is super hard. So.
Yeah. I guess from there, my next question would be, when you talked about like the game selector, is that actually like picking what game you're going to play? Or is it more just a list?
Well, it's picking, so
you mean right like now the first thing hard load in like what game you're going to play, don't we?
Right. So that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like the first big change in the sense that it's no longer one game running on one master game node. It is one master node running multiple quote master game nodes underneath it. So we're like blowing it out from one game running at any time to an arbitrary amount of games running at any time with 0 to many players, or I guess 1 to many players in each one, and they can move between them. So that's like what it is. And in that thing, it would be, I see a list of games, I select which one I want to play, kind of go from there.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Maybe also like a highlighted thing of games that are happening right now, because if I join and there's 100,000 games I can play and only one dude on my thing is playing cards, it should just be like, hey, dude is playing cards, you want to join that? No? Do you want to do something else?
You want to play cards alone? Just two people playing solitaire in the same room.
It's the saddest party I could think of, but I want to enable that with our technology.
Hey man, you don't know, like old people might like that. I don't know.
That's true. Can you imagine old people playing home games? That'd be like a dream for me.
Like your nana.
Yeah, dude, my nana's afraid of the computer mouse. She tried to use it once, and like just seeing her use it was like, she freaked out. She like didn't know how to whatever. So if I can get someone like my nana to play a thing on their phone, because she uses a touchscreen phone all the time. So yeah.
What's very funny to me is I actually feel like your mouse and keyboard is more intuitive than touchscreens, but I know that's not true. But I've been using a keyboard and mouse for so many years now that it just feels that way.
Yeah, I don't think it's intuitive at all to use a mouse and keyboard. Like, I've never really been a big fan of mouse and keyboard. I still play PC games with a controller.
Okay, so then... Okay, I think that those are pretty good goals, actually. I think we could do that for sure.
Thanks. What do you think? Like, what do you want to work on or see, or what are your goals?
I mean, to some extent, like however you envision the progress of the game should be, I'm okay with like taking that route unless I disagree with it, I guess is what I don't know what if I said it really makes any sense. If I don't actually disagree with it, I think it's fine to do it that way. Basically.
Well, like obviously I have like opinions of how this whole thing should run. Do you think I am wrong, or do you disagree with me in any of that stuff? Like, no, it's totally valid to.
I think that is valid, because if in 2 weeks we can finish Synovia's game, right? Mm-hmm. And then in another 2 weeks we can finish just like that like dashboard. That's pretty big. That's a lot of stuff that we can get done. Finishing Synovia's game is probably gonna like kind of open up another can of worms of like we have to implement some stuff that we didn't think about and like all that stuff. So I think that getting all of that stuff done is going to probably help us out a lot in the long run. And then doing the dashboard, setting up the like nodes over node, like basically like a master node that holds quote unquote master nodes, is probably going to be a big thing too. Because I mean, right now, like you have to hard change in the code what game you're playing, and I don't think people are going to want to do that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
No, like let's play like tic-tac-toe. All right, one of you get onto the computer, log in, get onto the code, open up the VS Code or whatever, get into the file, change the game we're playing, save it, restart the service. And there we go. Or we can do like hot reload. Although
just Control C.
Yeah.
No, yeah, we'd have to. I don't know, dude. I don't know how anything works. Seems like a lot of work. I don't think. Like I never want to have a version of this where it requires fiddling with any of the code or anything. Like it should just run, and unless you're modifying it, it should never be touched.
Yeah. Okay. I guess kind of to cycle back, one of the things I did mention kind of in passing was that you and I didn't want to use node packages where we could avoid it, basically. And right now, I think we completely avoided it. Like we haven't really
used the WebSocket library, but yeah.
Yeah. I think we used requests as well.
Yeah, we do. We should remove that. We don't need it, but we should remove it.
Do we not?
We can just make that with the like native HTTP libraries in Node.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, if we don't need it, we can get rid of it. I just wanted to ask you, like, to kind of go over the design philosophy of why we don't want to use packages if we can avoid it.
Sure. It's because the whole point of this is to learn, like for me, and for people, I think. So, yeah, like a lot of this could be done by some other library or whatever, but if I don't understand how it works, I don't really get that benefit. And you don't get control over it. Kind of in a general sense, you don't get control over your libraries. If there's a bug in it or something that doesn't work the way that you want it to, you don't really, unless you fork it, you don't really have the ability to change it. So, I don't know. I just think in general it's good to have control over the code that you write, and I think for this project specifically, it's the best thing to do because the whole point is to develop your knowledge and learn about how things work.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of that. I mean, you and I have talked about that in great length, and I'm sure we'll run into a place we have to talk about it again. I just want to like circle back on it.
Yeah, for sure. It's like definitely one of the core things because, like I said earlier, the education stuff is one of my most important parts, I guess. Like, yeah, it's cool that games run, but if it's a bunch of people who were like, yeah, I didn't actually go to a boot camp or whatever, I just built a bunch of stuff in Homegames, and now I think I want to be a programmer, so I'm going to go and then I'm going to go and do a boot camp or whatever, or then I'm going to go and do something or learn about data structures or, you know, never get a formal education and just kind of fuck with stuff until you learn it. That's like my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
So,
although I feel like if you can build a game in Homegames, you probably know about data structure, at least like the simple ones, arrays.
Not really. That kind of leads into something else we haven't really talked about, which is the current state of the code. The actual code base is a mess. Mm-hmm. The quality of the code is all over the place. We don't have a linter. We don't have anything. We have an ESLint config, but we don't actually use it. So it's just an absolute mess. And the current interface for like the core home game stuff is using just the game node function, which is just creating a new instance of a game node and giving it to you. So you basically construct a tree yourself. I don't really know how that interface should look, but it's not that. I mean, like, yes, it is that, but not really. So, like, plain, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I guess the only data structure that we're really using is a tree. Everything else is just, you know, magical interactions between stuff and changing a state.
Yeah. Wait, is that true? I thought we had, like, objects and stuff like the equivalent of a hash map.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But I mean, that's just like objects in JS. No one even thinks about that as like a data structure. It's like, oh, keys and values. They don't think about like, well, this could be an array.
I meant more for like somebody who's never really work on tech before, just picking it up. They'd have to learn like all that. Like, what does this curly brace mean? When does this curly brace mean function? When does this curly brace mean object?
Well, for sure. I mean, like, someone's going to have to learn what each character of their code is doing to write the code. But I think JavaScript is one of the easiest ones to do that with. Like, you can have people that are just copying and pasting shit, and then they quote, learn JavaScript like that. And they really just get an idea of what different things do. Like, you know, this stuff changes things. This stuff is just data, whatever. You get like a very basic understanding. So even someone just doing that to build up knowledge is useful, I think.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, to piggyback off of that, is there like any syntactic sugar we're gonna kind of like bake in to help people do stuff? I mean, I think we would have to, right? It's like act on the game nodes.
See, I think just for performance stuff, we should always give the developer complete access to their tree. But it's their tree, and now that we have this node, this master node above all, like, the game root is not really the Homegames root anymore, which will be nice. So yeah, then in that case, we can always have Homegame stuff above the developer's game root, but we'll always give them full access to theirs. And so the interface will always need to allow somebody to delete and add a node at any point. But I just think there's a way cleaner way to do that than game node, and then there's like 14 parameters to the game node function, and 7 of them are optional. It's like, this is either going to be a square or an image or a sound clip. It's like, okay, well, maybe, or not, actually a sound clip is an asset, it's a different thing, but something that references a sound clip, I guess, and it's invisible or whatever. Just things like that. Doesn't feel quite right. So maybe just splitting up the actual purpose of the game nodes and maybe extracting the tree stuff, unless you want to know, I guess. Because you still add children. I don't know, man.
I was going to say, like, even if we left you with the full access, just giving somebody like a nice sugar layer so that if they don't need to do anything like super crazy, like just stuff that you might do commonly, like stuff that we do commonly, so we just expose like that as like chunks of code.
I don't even think we know what we do commonly yet. I think we do need that, but I guess we're both fuzzy on what that actually is, but we need it. Yeah, it's, in the future, maybe it's just like you import some sort of Homegames common, and then in that Homegames common, you can just do certain little things that would abstract a lot of the whatever, but at the same time, you can also import, you know, Homegames common game node, and then just fuck around with the raw everything that game nodes Homegames common is doing.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. So we don't limit people. We do give people like a nice layer so they don't have to rewrite the same line of code or write their own helper functions if like a lot of people are going to use it. But you're right. Like, we just don't know yet, like, what are going to be super common things that people are going to do or not do, I guess.
But just like do a grep for game node and then open paren in the Homegame source, and you'll see just how many times that function is called and how awful every single call is. It's all bad.
Yeah,
all right, time for listener questions.
Yep.
All right, we got our first question from Yazeed in the audience, also in the podcast. What's up?
Yeah. How big is your booty? No. My question for you is actually, do you prefer chunky or smooth peanut butter?
Chunky.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god.
The downside is that it rips apart the bread. So like if you just have regular bread and you're going a little hard on the spread, you're gonna rip up some of the surface level bread, some of the dermis, if you will, the epidermis of the bread. The epidermis. The outermost layer of the bread flesh. And then but the core of the bread will be solid and it'll be ready for you to enjoy. And I think the substantial nuttery of a chunky peanut butter outweighs the downside of the slightly messed up bread layer.
I'm going to offer the exact opposite opinion, and I will also give you a much better reasoning. Smooth peanut butter is yummy delicious, and chunky peanut butter is straight garbo for savages.